Greetings and welcome. I am Sally Donlan, this evening's moderator. I'm also a member of the League of Women Voters of Lafayette. The League is nonpartisan and nonprofit. We do not support or endorse candidates or parties. Since 1920, the League of Women Voters has worked to educate and inform voters. Membership is open to all men and women over the age of 18. The Lafayette League encourages informed and active participation in government. Our members work to increase understanding of public policy issues and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Tonight, we're offering the public a glimpse of the candidates for Lafayette City Marshal. There are 4 candidates in this race, and we are happy to have all 4 of them here tonight to answer a few questions. The questions are designed to give the candidates an opportunity to express their positions on issues relevant to voters. Our process tonight will be to give each candidate in alphabetical order a minute to introduce themselves and a minute and a half for closing remarks. In between the intro and the closing, we will pose questions to each candidate in a rotating order. All but one of these responses will be limited to 60 seconds. 60 and 90-second time limits will be strictly enforced by our excellent and experienced timekeeper, Dr. Richard Cusimano. Richard will give candidates a 10-second warning and stop them with a warning shot if they go over the established time limits. Candidates are asked not to address each other directly. At this time, we'd like to throw all the cell phones into the Vermilion River, or at least have every member of the studio audience silence theirs for an hour. Now, let's hear from our candidates. If you don't mind, please introduce yourself. We will begin with Mr. Cormier, then Mr. Judice, Mr. Picard, and Mr. Pope. Mr. Cormier.
I'm Joseph B. Cormier. I'm married to the former Mary Ann Henry. I've been married for 45 plus years. She has been a public servant such as I since 1977, a school bus driver for the Lafayette Parish. I have been a public servant. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you. Well, certainly I am Kip Judice, and I am running for City Marshal in Lafayette. I'm 49 years old and married to the former Susan Justin, and we have 2 children, Emily and Brandy. I'm running for City Marshal because I do think that there are some things we can do better. I am convinced that we can be much more transparent in the way we do business. I think that we can be much more diverse in terms of who we employ. I believe that there should be a level of accountability to the Marshal and the Marshal's employees. I think that we need to be very fiscally responsible with respect to how do we spend the dollars that are collected by the Marshal's office. I also want to implement some programs that would help provide some other relief for people who cannot otherwise afford a criminal fine or a traffic fine in city court, as opposed to incarceration. We will save money all around by not having people incarcerated. So certainly, again, I ask for your vote. My name is Kip Judice, and I look forward to this quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Picard?
Okay. Excuse me. I'm Earl Nicky Picard, City Marshal of Lafayette, Louisiana, have been since 1984. I've been in law enforcement 61 years. I'm married. 65 years ago, I married my wife, Cecile Jeanette Dupuy. I have 2 sons and a daughter, 2 grandsons. One is a deputy sheriff in Iberia Parish. I retired as a command sergeant major from the Louisiana Army National Guard, and for the last 61 years, I have served my city, my parish, my state, and my country, and I feel I have done it well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pope?
Yes, I'm Brian Pope. I am running for City Marshal. I am a 24-year law enforcement veteran. 22 of those years were spent with the Lafayette City Marshal's office. The last 10 were spent as the captain of that office. I am married to Kelly Romero Pope. She's in the audience tonight, my beautiful wife. She's my soulmate. We have 3 children, Brennan, who's 22, Dylan, who is 19, and Gentry, who is 18. And I would appreciate your vote on November 4th for Lafayette City Marshal.
Thank you, candidates. First question goes to Mr. Judice, but all candidates will answer. A candidate for city marshal needs a high school diploma or the equivalent and to be a resident of the city of Lafayette. What other criteria do you see as critical for the office of city marshal? What is your educational and employment background, and how have these prepared you for being city marshal?
Sure. My educational background is a high school diploma, and I've been working with the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office for the last 29 and a half years. I've worked in a variety of areas at the Sheriff's Office to include patrol, intelligence, investigations, administration. I've been the public information officer and the executive officer overseeing the issuance of subpoenas to all of the residents from district court. I think all of those things uniquely qualify me to be the next city marshal. I also want to bring all of the different leadership styles that I've learned from the different supervisors I've had in the sheriff's office. I've worked for 2 different sheriffs, several different chief deputies, many supervisors within that office, and each one of those gave me certain tools as leaders in their respective roles to bring a different perspective to the marshal's office.
Mr. Picard, would you respond?
Yes, I started my police career, criminal justice, Easter Sunday, 1953. It happened to be April 5th that year. I was 21 years old when I started. I was with state police. I went with the sheriff's office in Lafayette, Louisiana. I served as the district attorney coordinator, the first one in history. I also served on the crime commission. I was the detention room administrator. I became the city court administrator in Lafayette, first one, September 1st, 1980. I've been in the court system, city court, 34 years, serving as marshal for the last 30. I'm a retired command sergeant major in the National Guard and have a lot of leadership skills from the Guard as well as the state police. I was always in the supervisory position. And you know, as a command sergeant major, you're the highest ranking enlisted man in a battalion. In that battalion I was in, I had 2 MP companies, an engineer company, a dump truck company, and 14 utility detachment. So you have to have some leadership skills to deal with 900 people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pope?
Yes, my educational background started at Lafayette High. I'm a graduate of Lafayette High in 1982. I also graduated from USL in 1987, which we call University of Lafayette, Louisiana now. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice and an Associates of Science degree in Political Science. I also graduated from the Acadiana Law Enforcement Training Academy in 1992. That was the 68th Academy. We call it ALETA, and I was the president of that class. I started my law enforcement career with the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Department in 1990. I was there till 1992. After that, I was with the Lafayette City Marshal's Office from 1992 to 2014. Like I said earlier, I was the captain for the last 10 years, from 2003 to 2014. I was also the accreditation manager for that office from 2005 to 2014. And I'm proud to say that we were accredited 3 times in a row, 2007, 2010, and 2013. I also co-produced.
Thank you. Mr. Cormier?
I feel that what is necessary to become a city marshal is only a high school diploma. And I, of course, Joseph B. Cormier, has a 4-year bachelor's degree from Concordia University. I have graduated from the FBI Academy. I have completed number of programs with the LSU Division of Education and Criminal Justice. My Facebook have those classes and the completion of each.
Thank you, gentlemen. The second round will begin with Mr. Picard. The question is, what do you think should be the top priority of the city marshal at present and in the coming next few years?
Well, according to the law, the marshal is the executive officer of the court. And it's his job to execute all the orders and mandates of the court. And in doing those things, he has to be well-versed in law enforcement and into the justice system. I think the biggest priority right now is to serve the court and serve it well. Not only to have trained deputies to serve the court, but also properly equipped and trained to work with other law enforcement agencies to enforce the law, state, federal, and city law. It says in the law that the marshal is the executive officer of the court. That makes him the law enforcement arm. So I execute all the orders of the court, and when I get a warrant, it says, you are hereby ordered, commanded, in the name of the state of Louisiana, City Code of Lafayette, to apprehend and bring him before me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pope?
Thank you. Moving forward to the future, I believe that the City Marshal's Office should maintain its accreditation. Also, I think we need to look at our diversity in the office. Also, our training, keep up with the training, with the advances in training, technology, and with the deputies' use of force policies, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cormier?
Could you just reframe that question again, please, for me?
Sure. Or what do you think should be the top priority of the City Marshal's office at present and in the coming few years?
Okay, the present time is just to continue. There is no rush moments within the city marshal at this time. You just continue on as been stated earlier. However, you should, and that's what I will do, is allow my employees to attend various schooling that will allow them to have professional attitude to the public, as well as the educational things needed to handle whatever is present at the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Judice.
Thank you. Well, I think the top priority currently and going forward is going to be to reduce duplication by forming partnerships with our sheriff, who deals with the district court, try to consolidate some of those efforts so that we're not sending deputy sheriffs out to the same house that we're sending deputy marshals, so that we can reduce the number of times we have to go to the same attorney's office to issue subpoenas and deliver subpoenas. I think that we can come to an agreement with the sheriff and work within those realms to make sure that we have some type of consolidated effort. I think that we also need to start establishing some research. We need to find out why these people are not coming to court, determine what factors are there. You know, we can sit here and assume that we know what the problem is and why they're not coming to court, but let's figure it out. Let's do some surveys, let's talk to these people, find out what it is, and then try to establish something that would ease those tensions. If they're afraid of going to jail, then let's establish a work program that would be a diversion of that.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the third question, we will begin with Mr. Pope. The question is, please describe the process you would use for hiring deputy marshals.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a process. We have a recruitment plan that's in place with the Lafayette City Marshal's Office, which was put in place due to accreditation. Our recruitment plan is a diverse plan. It's to reach out to hire all races, and I will look forward to installing that plan even farther when I'm elected city marshal, because there are some diversity issues in our office right now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cormier.
And that is what I would accomplish going forward.
This is the process you would use for hiring deputy marshals.
The hiring process within the city marshal is basically the same for all of us. It must be by the city marshal, and it must be approved by the city court and the sheriff's office, because the salaries of these men and women is provided by those entities that I just mentioned, and that's the way it will continue, except I will bring the employees to the courts so they can look over and review the information that I have gathered on each one of these employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Judice.
Thank you. Well, I think recruitment of people is extremely important, and I think that we need to start recruiting at the university, talking to some of these students that are looking in the criminal justice field. But beyond that, I think that we can recruit some of our personnel through some other law enforcement agencies and save on some of the leader costs, the cost of sending them through police academies. And like Mr. Pope said earlier, he came over from the sheriff's office, and And so you've got some basic training and some things that you can do there. So where possible, we look to use those resources. But beyond that, I think that we do need to look at how do we attract people from all segments of this community. It's extremely important that we're represented, everyone is represented with regards to race and sex and every other segment. So we certainly want to make sure that we're very diverse in terms of our recruitment and that we find some very qualified personnel. It's extremely important. I know the importance of putting a person who's qualified out there as opposed to an unqualified person who could potentially hurt himself or others. Thank you.
We'll close this round with Mr. Picard.
Okay, we have a system in the marshal's office now that when a person comes in, is interested in employment in the marshal, they fill an application out. I review the application, I have a training officer, I have the chief deputy and the captain. We go over the application, and the next thing we do, certainly is physical fitness. We give them a psychological test. It's sent over to UL for evaluation. That was never done until I became marshal in 1984. We do have in-service training, and it's probably done daily. It never happened before I became marshal. All of the equipment that we use, the deputies are highly trained on it, never happened before I became marshal. I'm the first marshal in the history of the city court to send anybody to any academy. And that started in 1984 because I was one of the founding fathers. I have a plaque hanging in my office that started a leader. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the next round, we will begin with Mr. Cormier. The question is, please describe your law enforcement, supervisory, management, and budget experience.
I was trained during the course of earning that bachelor's degree in criminal justice in the budgeting of the expense of all agencies, law enforcement. However, in addition to that, I experienced 3 years of budgeting for the Lafayette City Police, the Criminal Investigative Division, and I assist in the budgeting with the Louisiana Department of Justice in that DARE program. I was assigned to assist and provide whatever information that is given from the federal department or the federal agencies concerning those programs that came from the FBI division.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Judice.
Sure. My law enforcement supervisory experience has been broad. I spoke a little bit about it in my opening, but I've worked in the patrol department intelligence unit. I've supervised criminal task force. I have been the patrol commander at the sheriff's office, the executive officer, the public information officer. In the course of that time, I've supervised up to 168 people at one time, a 24-hour operation of all patrols in Lafayette Parish. I also managed a multi-million-dollar budget in that role. Sheriff Newstrom trusted in me to run that department, and we stayed within our confines. And it's tough when you're running a law enforcement agency because there's so many things, unexpected things that can happen in the course of a 12-month period, but you certainly are required to do that, and I bring that experience. From a management standpoint, I also manage the subpoenas and civil department at the sheriff's office and the evidence room. So the most highest integrity areas of the sheriff's office.
Mr. Picard.
I started budgeting processes in 1980 as the first court administrator. And I did that until 1984 when I became the marshal. The marshal's office, prior to my taking over, had never done a budget. I created the budget system in the Lafayette City Marshal's office and budgeting from city court monies and to the parish Lafayette Consolidated Government money. And that deals with training, purchasing equipment, insurance, all that comes under me. As far as supervision, I supervise every facet in the police department. I'm a hands-on type of guy. My office doors are always open, and I make all the policies. They had never written policies until I took over. General orders are important. How do you run an agency that's paramilitary? Of course, I had the military experience as a command sergeant major for 30 years. So I have that background there in budgeting and managing personnel. Thank you.
And Mr. Pope.
Yes, my administration skills come from being the captain for the Lafayette City Marshal's Office for the last 10 years. Also worked closely with the current marshal on our budget within the last 10 years as the captain. We are currently at a $1.6 million budget. We've always worked close together on that. And I was also, like I said, I was also the accreditation manager for the office. And on a day-to-day basis, I was always in charge of the day-to-day operations of that office. And there wasn't one time that anything had to go above my head to the marshal unless it was a disciplinary action.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the next round, we will begin with Mr. Judice. The question is, what is the role of the city marshal in relation to the judges, the sheriff, the police, and the constables, and what skills do you bring to handling that collaboration?
Sure. Marshal Picard described the role of the marshal earlier with regards to the enforcement arm of the Lafayette City Court. So certainly that is his most priority, is the two city court judges, Bouillon and Saloom. And certainly all of the orders that come from them are mandated. With regards to his relationship with the sheriff and the constables, it's absolutely critical that all law enforcement agencies work together, because when that happens, only one person loses, and it's the criminal. So I think that is something that we continue to increase those relationships with the sheriff and the constables and all of the judges. With regards to my experience, I do understand the critical information that comes through all of these law enforcement agencies and the sharing of that information. And I am one who can bring people to the table of all walks of life, the community, the elected officials, the appointed officials, and let's work on problems and come up with a solution collectively.
Mr. Picard?
I agree. It takes everyone in the system to make it work. And that no one can say that I have never not cooperated with anybody, from federal, state, parish, wards with the constables. Two things that I'm really proud of is the way I go to training, the way I do training in my office, and cooperation with other deputies, other city police officers, whatever. I have never refused to work with any agency on anything. One of the big things when Donald Bull got elected sheriff, we were commissioned throughout the entire parish of Louisiana to save all this. And when Sheriff Newsom came in for 4 years, we got commissions. We don't have any commissions anymore. So that's not my fault. I don't want to go into that, but I don't answer to the sheriff. I don't answer to the chief of police. I don't answer to the judges. I work with them. I'm a separate elected official. I've got my responsibilities. The court orders and mandates I will execute as long as I'm marshal. Thank you.
Mr. Pope?
Our main function at the Lafayette City Marshal's Office is to serve the court. We are ordered to serve all the mandates and orders of the court, and that's what we do. We've always worked closely with every agency. All the deputies have always got along with the police officers, with every agency, with the sheriff's department. Outside of any other struggles between elected officials or disagreements between any other elected officials never affected the work that we've done with every other agency. We've always worked together with everybody, and that will continue. On the ground, it's never been a problem, I can assure you that.
Thank you. Mr. Cormier?
The city marshal, as been said this evening, is the arm of the city court. It's to protect the city court in the criminal as well as civil. However, I'm trying to minimize this. However, you must cooperate with all law enforcement entities of this parish. That is the only way things can be accomplished. You must be respectful to each agency and operate according to your mission. Allow them to have their mission and operate in their functions. But don't try to control theirs. You have your own. Stick with that and be respectful of that.
Thank
There
you.
is more, but that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The question number 6 will go first to Mr. Picard. The question is, employee salaries and benefits, as well as the building and its maintenance, are paid by Lafayette Consolidated Government. Do you foresee changing budget needs in these areas or any others funded by fees and commissions, and if so, where?
Sure. I know when I came to work as marshal in the city court, deputies were making $5.26 an hour, risking their lives every day, having to meet all the state mandates for training and everything else. I made a pay plan, finally got it in to pay these deputies. I had one guy who was a janitor who became a deputy later on because he had 10 years in the Army as a military police officer. He went to the academy, he trained. To go from a janitor to a deputy marshal, he had to take an 86 cents an hour cut in pay. And that was ridiculous. I finally went to the city council and said, look, we are law enforcement, we need to be trained, we need to have the right equipment, but first we need a good salary where we can draw good people to come in and make the academies and do the training that is need to be done to do a good job. We do have a pay plan, and this last year, they got a 2% increase. It's controlled by Lafayette Consolidated Government. Thank you.
Mr. Pope.
Yes, the salaries and benefits are mandated by state law to be paid by the Lafayette Consolidated Government. Like the Marshal said, we do have a pay plan. We have a good pay plan. We installed that years ago to stay in step with the Lafayette Police Department. We will continue that as I will continue that as City Marshal. I will also continue to help those deputies get raises for cost of living down the road as we have done in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Cormier.
The salaries of deputies as well as your civilian employees are provided by your decision. You have that per se power to hire and release. It must be approved, however, by the city judge or in combination with the city and parish together to achieve that salary. The increase in the salary should be and will be dependent upon the effort that that deputy or civilian has put towards their job. If they want the training, it will be available to them to better themselves. Same for the civilian employees. But the salary must be approved by the judge or in combination with the judge and the sheriff. That's the only part the sheriff take in this. Thank you.
Mr. Judice.
Thank you. With regards to salaries, benefits, and building maintenance, I do expect those things to remain the same. There is a pay plan in place, and it is effective, and it's comparable. So with regards to that, not necessarily any changes. With regards to the discretionary dollars that the Marshal has, which are regards to the fees that he collects, I do expect some changes. I do think that we will be much more fiscally responsible with regards to how we spend those dollars. Currently, we spend a lot of money equipping the Marshal's cars with lights and sirens that are better and more extensive than those people who answer 911 calls. And I think that we got to be a little bit more responsible with your money. Again, it's just something that's one area I think that we're going to change in. I spoke about it earlier with regards to fiscal responsibility in terms of bringing prisoners back. And we want to make sure that when we do that, we're doing that for a solid case, and we're doing it for a case that we do have, we have to keep in mind the presumption of innocence in these cases. And I think that we lose that sometimes, but certainly important. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. For the next round, we will begin with Mr. Pope. The question is, what would you like to see the Marshal's office doing in the next 6 years that it is not doing now?
Well, I think the Lafayette City Marshal's office is a good, solid office. I think we just need to continue doing what we've done. We've always served the court properly. We've always done a good job with that. We're probably the most uncontroversial law enforcement agency in this state, if not in the nation, and that will continue. With our policies and procedures, I think accreditation helps us with that. And I think in the future, that's where we need to keep moving, is in that positive direction.
Thank you. Mr. Cormier.
I will appoint a committee that will look at, evaluate the needs of each thing that we are spending funds on. That committee will recommend to the marshal the need for this fund and the ability of that fund spending ability to aid the community. We try to streamline this effort as best we can and supply only what's needed and what's creditable for us to have. Some things are already in place and is working fine. We're not saying that, or I'm not saying that everything needs to be changed, because it's not. There is certain things that is working and working fine, but there is things that need adjusting. For instance, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Judice.
Thank you. In the next 6 years as your city marshal, I've talked about some of the things that I want to implement, and I will definitely work extremely hard at making those things happen. Again, providing the judges an option of maybe a work program as an alternative to incarceration, allowing people to go work off certain fines, allowing people to work better with the marshal's office with regards to maybe a more comprehensive website, and an interactive website, a website where you can go and learn a lot more about the systems that we deal with, specifically garnishments and evictions and other areas that are not so well known, like subpoenas and warrants with regards to the marshal's office. So there are a lot of plans for the next 6 years, and certainly I look forward to presenting them and working forward with the people. Thank you.
Mr. Picard.
I'm very proud of the fact that when I took the marshal's office in 1984, no training, no equipment, nothing. Today, we are probably the most well-trained, most efficient marshal's office in the state of Louisiana. I didn't do this by myself, but I'm the leader. I'm the guy that makes the decisions. If I didn't make the decisions I made, it was never going to happen. When you look at the CALEA, the Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, we are the only city marshal's office in the state of Louisiana to ever meet those standards. Not only that, we are the only agency of this type to ever do it in the nation. This is something that people never heard of before. And I'm going to continue doing that. I'm proud of the fact that I brought it in. I'm going to keep it in. It's a good cost to do that, good training, and I'll keep that going. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next round will begin with Mr. Cormier. The question is, what is your position on whether the city marshal's office should be term limited?
Should be.
Term limited.
Term. I have no direct view of it one way or the other. However, the view that I have is more of a personal view, and that is a two-term limit would be more than adequate for a city marshal. That position can be reviewed by the city as well as the parish, and an appointed position will be. The reasons for that is the office, the manager of the office has the knowledge that he or she should employ someone below them to be workable in that office and being able to run that office. That'll be it for now.
Thank you. Mr. Judice.
Thank you. I have no position on term limits, and I think that's a choice of the people. You know, you have an opportunity every 6 years to elect a marshal. And so if you choose that term limit has gotten to the point where you feel that they're there, I think you vote them out. I don't know that is a position that I want to be specifically dictating to the people of the city of Lafayette. Again, every 6 years, you have that option to elect a new marshal or to retain the marshal you've hired for that term. So certainly I would leave it up to the people and let them make those decisions. Thank you.
Mr. Picard.
I've been marshal 30 years. That's 5 terms. Term is 6 years per term. Every 6 years, people have a chance to limit that term. And I'm very proud of the fact that I've had opposition twice in 5 terms, re-elected by a big majority of 76%, and felt that the reason I'm re-elected, had no opposition 3 times, is because I'm doing my job as I am now. If I felt that I couldn't continue this job, I wouldn't be sitting here tonight. If I felt that I had the desire to get re-elected and continue what I've been doing for 30 years, I wouldn't be sitting here tonight. So it's a matter of every 6 years, if people don't want you in office, you're out. So we are term limited. And the people determine that term, not me. That's not up to me. That's up to the people.
Mr. Pope.
I agree also, probably with Mr. Judice. I have no really position on term limits as far as that. I mean, it is up to the people. It's up to the voters, just like we're running an election right now. It's up to you to vote who you want to be your next city marshal. Every 6 years, just like the judges and the district attorney, we're all on 6-year terms. So that everybody has the same opportunity to vote a person in or out. And I think that's the way it should remain.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question will begin with Mr. Judice. The question is, please describe 2 or 3 policy differences between you and your opponents.
Well, I think we haven't heard a whole lot with regards to where we want to go in the next 6 years from our opponents. And I've spoken very clearly about the programs I want to see us institute and on those areas where we want to move forward, where we want to be more fiscally responsible. We've heard a little bit about, yeah, I agree with Kip on diversity. That's a good thing. But Kip was talking about diversity back in May, and it's something that needs to be addressed. But it's certainly, without having a very good platform from other candidates in this race, it's hard for me to differ with them. It just seems like when it becomes a catchy phrase, they jump on board. So certainly, I've laid out my platforms, and I've said what we need to do for moving forward for the next 6 years, and hopefully, if nothing else, we bring those changes into effect, and whoever becomes your city marshal brings those changes in effect. But I look forward to serving in the next 6 years.
Mr. Picard.
Well, when you listen to the people that are running against me, they talk about before they execute a warrant, they're going to make sure it's a good case. That's none of their business. You got a warrant from a judge, it's an order to execute that order. It's a mandate of the court. What if you are charged in Lafayette City Court and you take it upon yourself? I'm not going to go. So it's disrespectful. So if I don't execute a warrant that a judge says you are hereby commanded in the name of the state of Louisiana and the city court of Lafayette to apprehend, and I'll tell the judge, well, it's not a strong case. I'm not going to do that. Is that malfeasance of office? Do I have a right to do that? On the thing of diversity, I'm the first marshal in the history of this city to have 3 people from the African American community to retire on their own voluntary. Mr. George Olivet, Mr. Benoit, and Mr. Mitchell. They're all retired in my office. Thank you.
Mr. Pope.
Well, the Lafayette City Marshal's Office, we do have our policies in place. We have the same policies as the Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. We're all accredited by the same accreditation agency. As far as saying I'm jumping on board with your diversity issue, you're very wrong. I faced a diverse commission at CALEA back in November and had to answer that hard question about our diversity. I know firsthand what we need to do about diversity. I knew we weren't diverse when we went to the committee, and I had told them that we do have our policies in place. They knew we had our recruitment plan, but our demographics report did not reflect that, and I understand that. So I'm not jumping on board about it. I know what needs to be corrected, and it will be corrected when I become city marshal.
Thank you. Mr. Cormier.
First off, let me tell the public that I'm not keen on answering a question such as this one with a 1 minute. Because things are said, but they're not done. All I can say to you, the citizen of this community, it sounds good, but you must be good. And when they're talking about hiring, you must, and it's best, stop that, but it's best for you to have diversity on a committee so you can get the cross-section you need to make a positive decision. It tells you that all over the universities when you're schooled to do that. That's the best way to go for your city, not for you. And I'm here to tell you that that should continue. We should not get on anything about that.
Thank you. Our last question before closing remarks will begin with Mr. Picard, and it is, what would you do to involve and inform the public about the work of the City Marshal?
I think we've been doing that. Sure, I've been doing it for 30 years as Marshal. I had to let the council know what we do. People did not know the extent of what the City Marshal does. Every Monday and Wednesday on Channel 15, AOC, for the last 13 years, that's what we do. We tell the people what we do. They call in, they want hellos and all this. I think the people in Lafayette know who the City Marshal is and what the job of the Marshal is. All they have to do is watch television. All they have to do is read the newspaper. All they have to do is watch what we do in city court. I went to Facebook, show pictures of the people in court and what they're doing there. We handle 150,000 people a year in city court. Don't you think that the public is not aware of that? That we're one of the busiest city courts in the state. I think we've done a good job with public relations to let people know what we do and how we do it. Thank you.
Mr. Pope?
Yeah, the Lafayette City Marshal's office has always been open to everybody. There's very few people that don't know what the Lafayette City Marshal's office do in this city. In my walk, in my campaign, most people do know what we do. They've watched our television program. We've always been there. The door has always been open to everybody to come with their questions, their problems. A lot of them come because they couldn't get the answers from the sheriff's department or the city police, but they can always come to the marshal's office and learn the law or get some help with the problem that they have, so that we will continue that in my administration.
Mr. Cormier?
Yes. The public, we talked a couple of times about transparency. The public is very interested in transparency. They really don't want to know exactly to perform your duties because they would have to go and get educational matters straightened out for that. It's not what they want. They want to see where their money is spent, the good of that money, and that the plan you're putting up there. I have a plan that is transparent, and it's not about when you see a vehicle traveling down the street, and if it's all smoke windows, well, what does that portray to you, the citizens? They can't see their officer traveling their streets. They need to be able to communicate with that officer, and doing so is in person.
Mr. Judice?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would start by involving some of our university professors and some of the programs that they have over at the university, so that we can be part of the learning process for these people that are seeking higher education. I think it's important. I think we reach out to the high schools and some of the other educational systems and say, listen, come to City Court, come learn about the Marshal's office. The Marshal currently has an Explorer program which involves youth and gets them a first-hand look at what's going on, and I think that that's something that we can build on because it's important to keep our youth involved. I also would become way more aggressive with regards to Facebook, regards to Twitter and on a website, become way more interactive and a way that people can get into that website and learn about what's going on every day in the Marshal's office, look at what was going on with regards to wanted people and other issues. So that would be my plan as we move forward.
Thank you, gentlemen. We've reached that time when each candidate will be given 2 minutes for closing, to make a closing statement. The committee has selected the order by coin toss. First the order will be Kip Judice, Cormier, Pope, and Picard. Mr. Judice.
Thank you. Well, first, I really want to thank the viewers tonight. Becoming informed is going to be the first step in picking the best person for the job in the next 6 years. And I think I am the best person for that job. And I think that because we've heard some things here tonight where most of us agree on a lot of issues. But from a philosophical point of view, I will bring to that office all of the tools we need to make those things happen. And again, I think it deals with the personality of being able to work with all of the officials, elected and appointed, all of the people that we need to bring to the table. I'm very open to working with business leaders and business owners and elected officials to make sure that we don't have one person's view running this office. We are going to be very open with regards to learning what the community needs and what they want. We're going to be very fiscally responsible, ladies and gentlemen. I really want to spend your money wisely. I think that is an area where we will hear more about in the next 40 days, but we do need to continue to talk about that issue. It's got to be something that you deserve as a member of the city of Lafayette. From an accountability standpoint, I think that we do need to, the Marshal does a great job of holding people accountable with regards to people who are accused of crimes. We need to hold ourselves accountable, and we really need to start with the review of that office and with regards to how we investigate complaints within that office or issues within that office. How do we deal with that, and how open are we with those responses and the results of that? I don't intend to give up control as your Marshal of those issues. It is my responsibility after you elect me and I take office. It is my responsibility, and the buck stops with me. But I certainly think that we can look to other agencies and see how we can better investigate complaints within that office. With regards to diversity, I am the first candidate who began speaking about it. Again, you go to kipformarshal.com, you will see it on my website. And no other candidate was talking about it then. So, and I will fix that problem. It is the first order of business when I take office. Thank you so much, and please vote for Kip Judice.
Mr. Cormier.
I too would like to thank you for your time and for your involvement. I wish to tell you as quick as I possibly can how sincere that I am, that I want to serve you. I have served in the Marine Corps. I served in Vietnam. I came back home. I did the service with the city police, the sheriff, and the state. Now, I'd like to do for the city marshal. It's not that difficult. It's much more, and you will see much more humanitarian involvement with our office. It will protect the city court. It will protect the citizen that comes within the city court, and it will protect the judges. But it will have to be done through a plan that is done by assisting the employees to raise the standard of performance by affording deputies the educational and professional level to have these opportunities to improve. Change the overspending of public funds, holding down. Need no dog. We don't need no automatic weapons. Citizens must understand when you have those type of things, that excites people. Give the people the impression that you are another service department, the Marines, the Army, all those. It's enough for you.
Mr. Pope.
In closing, I would like to start out by thanking the League of Women Voters, AOC, the viewers, and all the attendees in the audience tonight for coming out tonight. really thank y'all for this. I'm proud to tell you that you do have a Lafayette City Marshal's office that is fiscally responsible, something that you can be proud of. We're probably the most fiscally responsible agency in the city government. We also, the diversity issue will be corrected once I'm elected. Other candidates are saying they created it, calling it a catchy phrase. It's not a catchy phrase, it's reality, and we have to face that reality. But, you know, I've claimed this election, I've given it to God. I think with my education, experience, leadership, and administrative skills, I set myself apart from these other candidates. And I will guarantee you that if I'm elected city marshal on November 4th, this office will be open to you, your family, and your friends. Thank you very much.
Mr. Picard.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum, and the people that are in attendance, and the viewers out in television land. My office is probably the most active office marshals in the state of Louisiana. And I did that 30 years and I'll keep doing it. They talk about weapons and dogs. We're in 2014 now. We're not back in 1984 or 1920. It's a lot different. The dog is a tool to save the deputies. We carry tasers, we have machine guns, we have shotguns. We are a law enforcement agency. We there to enforce the law. We have a responsibility. If we don't equip the deputies properly, with all the shootings and everything that has been increasing every year, what are we to do? Send these young men and these young women out there to get shot and killed because we don't have weapons? That wasn't like that when I started. I don't want to make an army out of it. I want to do my job as a law enforcement officer, protecting the people who come to city court. That's why I put an x-ray machine, a metal detector, and we make outside building searches every day, inside building searches. That has to be done. That is a very sensitive area when you come to court. I got a document here. They talked about transparency. I want to see what agency in this state can stand up to you right now tonight and say, here are the warrants in the city court of Lafayette for drunk driving in the last 20 years. You know how many you got here? 93. I can give you all the names. I want any agency to be able to do that. Drunk driving is a criminal offense. It has to be handled that way. We're dealing with drug addicts. We're dealing with people that are being arrested, carrying weapons, and all this stuff. We have to do it that way. It's not the Army, it's not the Navy. I know the difference, and I will keep doing it as long as I'm the marshal of this city. Thank you.
Thank you to all of the candidates, and good luck with each of your campaigns.
Thank you.
We hope that you feel that you can now make a more informed decision about which candidate for city marshal meets your needs and expectations. Early voting begins on October 21st, and the primary election is on November 4th. Please watch for candidate forums sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Lafayette, with candidates for Lafayette Parish School Board coming up in October. We'll also be publishing questionnaires collected from judicial and other candidates. Thanks for watching, and spread the word. Thanks again to the candidates, Dr. Cusimano, the League of Women Voters Services Committee, and AOC Community Media.